Looking at the figure 23, you'll see what this does is to look at it in terms of ratios, and there's a third one that's thrown in there at the bottom of the page, which is called the cash flow ratio. And I like to also look at this cash flow number because what it does is it takes depreciation out of the picture. That's one of the big differences. There are some others, but essentially what you're looking at here is what is the inflow of cash into the university generated by its operating activities, tuition, grants, sales of, departmental sales of varying different kinds of things, revenue from auxiliaries, so that's all coming in, and then the expenses, not expenses, but, because they're technically different, but outflows of cash, that is cash expenses, your paychecks, paying for your benefits, paying vendors, paying for travel, paying for the lights, all of those kinds of things that you need to operate. And in addition to that, it also takes into account the interest payments that you have to make because those are an expense. It is a check that the university must write in order to keep on operating. And so that's what this operating cash flow number is. And what you can really see there is that that's a very stable number. That's that middle one that's kind of just floating across at 5% kind of plus or minus. There is no big up and down because the change in the value of your investments doesn't affect your cash flow unless you're selling. And if you're selling when it's high, you'll have an inflow of cash. If you take losses, there's going to be, an outflow. That kind of shows you, it takes that investment stuff out of the picture, and it also takes out the depreciation. And there you can see, very stable performance for the university. And I think that's really all to the good, that's positive. The last thing I'll focus on is on page, get there, 47, and that is looking at what are called the Senate Bill 6 ratios, or in figure 28 are the composite scores for Bowling Green, which are the Senate Bill 6, based on the Senate Bill 6 ratios. Senate Bill 6 was a bill that was passed in the aftermath of the Central State basically going bankrupt and having to be bailed out by the state, and after that the state said, we want to have a system of accountability so that we know how financially our institutions are performing. And so every year and they knew, by the way, to look at the audited financial statements, because that's where these ratios come from. That every year when the auditor gets the state auditor gets your audited financial statements, they send those numbers over to the Board of Regents, which then posts these ratios for every state university and college on their website, and you can calculate them independently. They give you the formula for how to calculate them there. And again, you can see a number that's really very stable. And I think any vice president for business and finance, or whatever you call your chief financial officer, will tell you, if they're being honest, that if you're at 3 or above, you're in really good position. I mean, this is an index that varies between 0 and 5. To be at 3 is definitely, a good place to be. The state says that if you're at 1.75 or less for 2 consecutive years, you're in trouble, and they're gonna come in and replace your trustees and try and put you in what amounts to receivership. You can see we're a long way from that, and that you're in 2011. You're really approaching 5. I mean, I think it's 4.7 is the actual number. And so you can see that you've done well, and that not all of the numbers are out for 11 for everybody else, so that's why the graph below that only goes to 2010. because not all of the 11 audit reports have been approved yet, and I didn't try and go out. I could have, if I took the time to get everybody's financial statements, I could have made the calculation myself, but that's really time consuming. I'd rather just wait until the regents put it up on their page. But one of the things that you can see is that Bowling Green State University has consistently performed slightly above the average for all of the other state universities. It's not all that clear, but your bar is the one that's always a little bit higher than the other one. The other one is the average for all of the other universities, excluding you. So it looks at you relative to the other state universities. So I'm gonna close by saying that I'm sure you're all aware of the fact that your salaries here are down near the bottom of the state, and you know, are at the bottom for any of the research universities in the state of Ohio. And given this financial performance, I mean, we're all living in this kind of same universe. You're not living in some alternate universe here. We all live in Ohio. We're all, this is money. And if your financial performance is better, there's really no reason why the salaries for the faculty at Bowling Green should be at the bottom. If they are, it's simply a matter of priorities. What is important at this university? And clearly, thus far at least, the university has said it's not the faculty. And by saying that, I think they're saying it's not the students. It's not the learning conditions of the students, because how you treat your faculty is a reflection really of what you think of your students. I'll be happy to take any questions, and I hope that wasn't too long. I'll be glad to take any questions.